Can we start? Yes. Hello, Johannes. How has quarantine been for you? Did you compose anything new during the lockdown?
Well, yeah, I'm always pretty creative, and I mean now it's been a long time. It's almost a year, so yeah, I've been doing a lot of writing, and I've been doing a lot of stuff on educational material,
Yeah.
and I did a lot of video recording, and I did a lot of live streams last year. I did almost no, I mean I did about 35
Oh,
live
wow.
streams during last year's as a kind of replacement instead of concerts.
Yeah.
But it was also, actually for a long time, I wanted to develop a better kind of structure on social media and online, and a lot of that have been managed. And we also created this a new project called Guitar City Magazine, which I'm pretty excited about.
Yeah. So, I just wanted to ask, what first got into music, during your childhood? What, who inspired you to play the guitar?
In my case, we had my dad was a flute player,
Yeah.
and my grandfather was a viola player.
Yeah.
And my dad actually he played in orchestras,
Yeah. Yeah.
and he did a lot of chamber music. That was the thing. So he did a lot of chamber music, and in the summer seasons he used to go on tour. All right, and then there's no orchestra concerts going on in the summertime. It's different.
Yeah.
And in Sweden there's a lot of concerts held in the churches. All right. So
Mhm.
they're kind of smaller, more intimate concerts, but a lot of them, because there's so many of these little churches. And these are very good in the summer because they're a little cooler, because the stone walls, and of course, naturally, the acoustic you get in there, it's just naturally very good.
Yeah.
So he originally he would do this with a piano.
Yeah.
And that was kind of another issue about the piano was, being in those churches in the summer, it would very often go out of tune, and it was very irreliable.
Yeah.
So, so already before I got interested in guitar, my dad had already started collaborating with classical guitarists for his kind of summer performances. So I think for me that was kind of pretty, I had a pretty close up relation to the classical guitar in a way. Although I mean I was a child, I wasn't really interested in what they were doing, but it was present there for me. So it and that just sort of I think had a big part to play.
Yeah.
But
So,
then
what are your hobbies apart from playing the guitar? Do you have any other hobbies?
well, in a way I'm lucky in the sense that my hobby is my job.
Yeah.
You really say that. So I mean I couldn't say that anything else than music really is my true hobby, because I'm that is just kind of how it went. But I do enjoy. I mean, in these days we're not can't do so much, but also been enjoying kind of this aspects around, like I was telling you earlier about um, the City of Guitar magazine.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I've written sort of articles about technical aspects, and so this in a way it kind of truly is my hobby. It really does interest me, those kind of things,
Yeah.
about the guitar. So I think
Uh,
the
so,
guitar is my hobby.
if you don't mind, can you demonstrate the Presto movement which you play from the Koyun Baba, to our audience?
Carlo Domeniconi was originally from Italy,
Yeah.
but he lived for a long time in Turkey.
Yeah.
And as we know, he was in Istanbul, and Istanbul is exactly the point where Asia meets Europe,
Yeah.
also in the ancient Silk Road.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it actually, Istanbul is a culturally very interesting place. And what I like about being in Istanbul is the fact that when you go across the bridge, the main bridge, the city, you go between Europe and Asia, because that's how those continents are separated by water. All right.
Yeah.
So for me, this is a very, very nice place. And in this music, you really kind of, for me, I think you really hear that, connection to the East and to Turkish music and beyond, let's say, because to really understand any music, I guess, we need to understand the origin, and of course, what makes a Turkish music so glorious, like a lot of other musics around the Silk Road, is how different instruments and different influences sort of traveled with this merchant road originally, and that is because it went on for so many years, hundreds of years.
Yeah.
So culturally it had influence too. I mean, nowadays we can have that kind of influence, I mean, in a second, online, but it's different. This is a kind of a very sort of like a stone that's been in the water, for thousands of years and becomes so smooth. It's like time has done something to it. And we have to understand the string instruments, sort of like the Turkish ones, they're also have Persian origin, just like the string instruments in India, in Hindustani music.
I like the sitar.
Yeah, sitar is the more modern version. I mean, you have the older ones like the Rudravina and so on. But
Yeah.
the concept of the string instrument is a Persian influence in both cases. So this is the same for Turkey. And anyway, so this is one of the most unique guitar pieces in our modern literature, you could say.
Oh,
in my opinion, because it's so groundbreaking. Because classical guitar repertoire, now it's a little different, but up until a certain point, and this, I guess, is sometimes in the 80s that this piece got popular, or maybe even slightly later. I should know that. I think it's written in the 80s. Anyway, to do something like this, okay, we know alternative tunings. So we have the dropped D, okay, that can happen. We have the dropped G.
yeah.
But such a radical tuning like this, where basically this is actually, I tune it to slightly lower because he wants you to crank up the first string to an F. But I don't like to go quite that high, but it's almost an F. So that's an F. And have a D, A, D, A, D. But all of this is more like, actually like almost a semitone lower. So it's just a lovely tuning. So you get a kind of D minor. Open tuning, you could say. Of course, in the piece, if you go more, he does, excuse me.
Yeah.
He does modulate within, this tuning, but as a standard, it really is just a D minor. And what makes it a little unique is the fact that all of these are D, A, D, A, D. And then you get the third, the minor third is the first string. So that is, as a tuning, it's already, it's not a really kind of, this is really kind of an open tuning because it's all,
Yeah.
1 and 5s, right? But then I love that kind of twang it gets from that tuning. And in this last movement that you were talking about, Carlo has found a way that is kind of adapted, or invented sort of texture, a technique that kind of This is not, I mean, exactly the way they would play it on a Turkish instrument, perhaps, but really kind of goes in that sphere. And that kind of, so he does first a note, followed by a slur, followed by a lower note.
Yeah.
In this case, the bass, which then is, excuse me, I'm getting some messages too. Anyway, that's part of it. So actually the melodies, so, and then, but then is it like in 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So if you then play kind of quickly, that movement is so beautiful, but the first movement is incredibly beautiful too. And what is also special about this piece is it's 4 movements, and the whole thing is about 12 minutes or so. So personally, I normally in concert I don't play the full thing, but people like John Williams, they did play the whole thing, in concert, and many people did. So it was kind of really changing something in the modern repertoire of the guitar, and I feel that this piece really opened a kind of practice or a kind of acceptance, perhaps, of the idea of retuning the guitar. Because I mean, this is something that is. I remember that I was when I was a student at the Royal College of Music in London. I had a music history professor, and we were actually discussing some things about guitar repertoire, and he heard some of the things I was doing, and I did some modern things and some Bach and all kinds of things. But what he really thought was interesting, and he was also a kind of a music critic. He said that this piece, the Koyun Baba, he actually really liked it because he thought that represented something. Just the fact that you retune the guitar, you would get such a different sound. And I mean, if you do play the whole thing, you're really going off there dreaming in the clouds, like for 12 minutes. And actually,
Yeah. Which are the famous guitarists do you admire?
Well, as I said, the guitar is really my hobby. So over the years, this is before we had YouTube and that. I'm that old.
Yeah.
And we had, so it was really about having CDs, and I would, buy a lot of CDs and listen to them. I mean, I'm old enough to have used cassettes, but cassettes offers very bad sound, so
Yeah.
it was kind of a thing then to have like, oh my God, now we can get the CD and we can
Yeah.
really hear, you could, get David Russell CDs, you could really hear exactly how it sounded, or Barweko, or you name it, or the, of course, the old guys too, but sometimes, of course, it's something very special about having that really high quality recording. Saying that, nowadays with so much video, you could learn so much from watching. And at those days, I remember a lot of times I would kind of try to imitate those sounds, and that was just from hearing, But of course, if you would have seen, maybe, of course, it got popular also to have DVDs at that time. So I had a few of those, but because I was kind of always very interested since a young age. I would go to many guitar festivals, and I met people like Carlo Dominicones, meeting firsthand and things like that. So it, that way.
Yeah. How do you feel like the internet or like social media has impacted the music business nowadays?
Well, that is kind of an obvious question. In a way, maybe it's
Yeah.
not as, but of course, it's tremendously hurt, and it's just basically, I think for a lot of people, it feels like it's gone.
Yeah. Yeah.
The live music. I know now, for example, in India, things are changing. So, and in China, things are much better. All the borders are closed, so it
Yeah.
hasn't, but so I think for a lot of places, it's just kind of drifted. But it will, what I'm hoping for, or what I'm anticipating, is a kind of feeling of, once we can have live concerts again properly, it will be something special, and maybe we were taking it a lot for granted, and we say, oh, we can just as well see it online or whatever. But here we go. Now we've done that for a long time, and I hope when it comes back to it, I'm totally looking forward to go back on stage. And I know, ironically, in a way, many
Yeah.
of us maybe felt like, oh, this, now I have a chance to catch up on stuff I wanted to do, be more creative or whatever. But in a way, I did that already, and I bulked up a lot, so I'm ready for the performance again. I have, a lot of new music to share, that I.
Yeah. So like the interaction between the audience and the guitarist, like it's very important, like for live shows.
Well, what is interesting about this is that we're doing so many things online, and we
Yeah.
can maintain a lot of things, and we can still create beautiful music. And for me, it's been a question of finding new forums, like getting a nice setup. What I kind of going for mostly is just videos. A bit like here, I'm just sitting here and I'm playing, I'm playing a piece from beginning to end, all right? And that's kind of a video that goes out. So it gives somewhat of a feeling of kind of, it's not artificial. It's more like a live performance. I want to give that kind of, kind of strive for that being, rather than having different camera angles and making it look maybe more like TV, let's say, but in the opposite with
Yeah.
the online thing, I am trying to do something that is in between. There are many wonderful things too that we couldn't have done, but of course it is a question of, it's very difficult for the people who did so much performing like myself, that when that whole bit of your work is taken away, of course it has tremendous financial consequences. So but and the problem is it goes on so long. But I mean, luckily I've done a lot of other things, and but it's kind of been a reboot. And the problem with this kind of situation is that it happens so sudden. So it's taken a while. I mean, it's been a year almost, but it's also taken almost a year to now build up something different, But there's also a lot of beautiful things that we probably wouldn't have gotten as far with. And one of this, like the online live streams, also like now the Guitar City magazine, other
Yeah.
things.
So, what are some challenges you think the next generation of musicians will face, according to you?
Once it comes back together again, I'm hoping that if you want to be optimistic, in the long run, there might be kind of almost like a reboost for the live performance, because when it happens again, it's more special. All right. This, of course, it was ironic for me. The last concert I played live, it was in Australia, and it had just kind of broken out, the rules and everything. And already then, so we did a live stream concert. The audience was limited; they had to sit apart, etc. So it was that was the last memory for me. And now it's just I never thought it was going to be so long, but as it starts again, I'm hoping we can think of it as a new thing. And I'm, so for the young generation, actually, the younger generation is perhaps not affected so much, because if it's anyway the time to grow and build your performance skill and so on. What I do, but I'm not sure about if there is a kind of a lack of inspiration. I'm also, I do a lot of online teaching, and it's surprising how, and we can find new ways to make that more successful. Like I can teach also some things, just because of the distance. This wasn't invented after, it was already going on for years to do online lessons. And there's in some ways it can be very effective. Of course, there's certain aspects which also cannot touch. And I also eventually what effect that has, I don't know. But I think, as for the young generation, for the upcoming, this is a good time, but I hope that there's not a kind of a lack of inspiration. And obviously there can be kind of a tremendous lack of the social interaction, which is, when it comes to education, this is such an important part of it. It's the community thing in your class and so on. So, but anyway, that we have also tried a little bit to do online instead. So I think the beauty of it is, whatever, this crisis is past, the culture of whatever you were doing. The guitar is going to be there. And if anything, we've used this time in a good way to prepare for the future. But I think in a way it hits harder on us who are kind of in the professional field doing this kind of activities majorly, as a majority. But
according to you, what are the three qualities that makes a good guitarist?
The three qualities. Wow, that is something. Well, it's hard to say. What makes a good musician, what makes good art, ultimately has to do with if there's a kind of communication or a kind of emotional reaction or some kind of stimulation. Well, art is ultimately about the experience. So there are different ways to achieve that. Of course, within classical guitar field, is more easy if we narrow it down to what makes a good classical guitarist. I would say that it makes it easier. And I think one of the things is, well, there are too many things, but I think one of the things is, of course, a certain sort of technical ability, because of our repertoire, and even the problem with the classical guitar is, even if you're playing something very simple, it's an instrument that is so sensitive to touch. So to really control, and express the melody well, we need a certain amount of, skill, let's say, craft, you know. It's like that's your craft, right? So that's the basis. But then, I mean, the other quality that I think is very important, of course, is the kind of, well, it's a kind of a, you know, an insight into the music, perhaps, you know. That makes a difference. And of course, what is so important, but that is also in the technical aspect, but it's so important to be able to control the sound, you know, actually.
Yeah. So, like, if you could change anything about the music industry right now, what would it be?
The problem is right now we're talking about something like the music industry, and because of the crisis, the music industry is
Yeah,
so badly hurt that it's currently kind of having to reinvent itself.
yeah,
And there's many problems to it, because live music was also feeding a whole other industry of speaker light technology, technicians, entire professions, which are basically made useless in a way, you know. And we can do our thing online, but the stage technician, he cannot do it online, you
yeah,
know.
yeah.
Because
So,
with that,
like,
what
who?
happened, you know, with the, so that is, the music industry is truly changing right now
Yeah,
tremendously. But you know, we talk about anything about this, the way I approach it, it's not about what I would want to change or something like that, but because it is something changeable. So I mean, you
yeah,
change it by being in it and creating certain platforms, you know, that are needed or that interest us. Again, I'm talking about the City of Guitar magazine, the Guitar City magazine, for example. It's something that's been really fun to do. And I think that it's changing, also can change our, you know, feeling about the guitar. And Guitar City magazine is based, also lifestyle based. So we put a lot of effort into things like design, presentation.
So, like, can you play anything, like, which is a favorite piece recently which you have composed or?
Well, the thing is now, I don't know how well you get the recorded sound,
Yeah, no, we can hear it properly.
but I don't know how, because you're on Zoom, right? I don't know, and the
Yeah, yeah.
recording is, you get it kind of distorted. Anyway, let's what now, which we had this tuning, right? So now, so let's me do like a kind of kind of like an improvisation on this tuning. So because we talked about the Koyon Baba tuning, so it is such an awesome tuning. And actually, personally, I also played around with it, and I like this tuning a lot. Also with some alterations, you know. But now we're here, so let's just enjoy this tuning a little bit. And what is happening? So if you remember before, I was telling you the D, A, D, A. So that means that these are D and D, all right? And this is so these are the same. So playing octaves becomes very intuitive because it's the same fret. Same with the D string. So, and then you have the same here because it's D and D. So actually, there's 3 Ds. The first string, not really, but that leaves the first string like a kind of a nice kind of high flying, really kind of clear high voice. And then what do you, remember how that piece was? Second and third string. So I think I'll go back a little. It sounds better.
That was beautiful.
Thank you. That was just me playing around with this tuning a little bit.
Yeah.
It's just a lovely tuning, and actually the first strings I need to. I wasn't really prepared, but the first string, it's still a little bit odd the feeling, you know, with the third on the first string, but it is really something very lovely about that.
So thank you so much, Johannes, for joining us. All the best for your future projects,
Thank you
and
so much.
we hope to see you in India soon,
Me
very
too.
soon.
Me too.
Yeah, after this pandemic gets over.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Thank you so much.